Okay, so ministers dining with someone who, well, later gets convicted for money laundering. You hear that,
Yeah.
and it definitely makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's certainly caused a stir in Singapore recently.
And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at these reports about dinners involving Singaporean ministers, the businessman Sam Goy, the Popia King, and this figure, Haijin. We're drawing from reporting in 2230.
Exactly. And our goal really is to unpack this for you. What are the key questions popping up around accountability, transparency, and maybe most importantly, public trust?
Yeah, that trust element feels huge here.
So let's maybe set the scene first. Who are we talking about? You've got Sam Goy, a well-known businessman. He stated he hosted and paid for some informal dinners.
Right, hosted ministers and Haijin. And Goy's specific point was these were before the COVID-19 rules clamped down in 2020.
Correct. Then there's Haijin, the individual at the center of the controversy due to his later conviction for money laundering, basically, handling dirty money.
And the ministers reportedly at some of these dinners. We're talking Ong Ye-kung, who's a health minister now, Chi Hong-tat, the transport minister.
And also former Minister Lim Swee-say and En Shi-meng, who, as you mentioned, just won the Jalan Kayu SMC seat.
So how did this all surface?
Well, the timing is interesting. Photos from these dinners started doing the rounds online pretty soon after the general election on May 3rd. The election where the PIP did quite well.
Ah, okay. So the timing itself probably added fuel to the fire.
It certainly got people talking. Questions started flying. What was the relationship here? When exactly were these dinners? And crucially, given who Haijin turned out to be, were these interactions declared properly?
And this is where it gets, let's say, complicated.
Yeah.
Because there's evidence that seems to contradict Goy's timeline.
Precisely. 2230 highlighted a key piece here, a screenshot. Allegedly, it's from Haijin's phone or communications.
Okay, and this screenshot, what does it show?
Well, according to the source, it's dated September 24th, 2021. And it apparently shows Haijin saying something like having dinner with the minister, along with a photo of him and En Shi-meng.
September 24th, 2021. That date rings a bell. Wasn't Singapore tightening restrictions then?
Exactly. That's the kicker. As 2230 pointed out, that very day, September 24th, 2021, was when Singapore brought back stricter dining rules because of rising COVID cases. Group sizes went down to just 2 people.
Wow. Okay, so you have Sam Goy saying everything was pre-2020, and then this screenshot pointing to a dinner in late 2021, right when rules tightened.
Yeah.
That's quite a mismatch.
It really is. It raises the question, is it just, someone genuinely forgetting the dates? Or is there something else going on, a memory lapse or something more deliberate?
Has Neng Chi-meng said anything about this specific 2021 dinner?
Yes, he has. He confirmed attending a dinner on that date, September 24th, 2021. His explanation was that, well, it's part of his role engaging with different people, stakeholders.
Okay, so he admits being there.
He does. And he also added that once Haijin's legal problems came to light, he had no more contact with him.
But the declaration question. Did he say whether that specific dinner, the hospitality, was declared according to the rules?
That's the bit that seems unanswered based on the reporting, which naturally brings us to the regulations themselves. What are public officials supposed to do?
Right, because there are rules for this.
There are. Singapore's Public Service Code of Conduct is pretty clear. You need to declare gifts or benefits, and that includes things like free dinners if they're worth more than $50.
And since Sam Goy himself said he paid for these dinners,
then they clearly fall under that category of paid hospitality, a benefit received.
And doesn't the PIP also have its own guidelines? Something about avoiding even the suggestion of being improperly influenced.
That's right, the rules of prudence.
Yeah.
They stress not accepting hospitality that could, make it look like someone's trying to gain favor or influence. It's about perception, too.
So the rules seem fairly straightforward. But what about the other ministers mentioned? Ong Ye-kung and Chi Hong-tat. Have they commented on attending or declaring?
Well, that's another point highlighted. There hasn't been apparently a public response from them specifically about whether they attended these dinners with Goy and Sue, or whether they declared any such hospitality if they did attend.
That silence. It doesn't really help clear things up, does it? It kind of feeds into the wider concerns.
It certainly leaves questions lingering.
Yeah.
And it touches on that broader issue of public trust we mentioned earlier.
Because even if, let's imagine, technically no rules were broken, maybe the dinners were under $50 or declared or whatever loophole,
Right.
there's still the perception issue. Ministers dining with someone later found guilty of serious financial crime. What kind of message does that send?
That's a fundamental question, isn't it? It makes you, the listener, wonder, can people be absolutely sure these kinds of relationships didn't shade any decisions down the line or weren't somehow used by someone like Haijin to gain access or legitimacy?
Yeah, the appearance of potential conflicts or just poor judgment can be really damaging in itself.
And that's a point 2230 seems to emphasize. In situations like this, what you really need is clarity, openness. Vagueness and silence, they just tend to chip away at that public confidence.
Okay, so wrapping this up, maybe let's crystallize the key questions that this whole situation, as reported by 2230, puts on the table for us to think about.
Yeah, there are a couple of direct ones posed. First, does Singapore need, perhaps, an even stricter system for declaring interests and hospitality, applying to all political office holders, just to ensure maximum transparency?
Makes sense. More disclosure, less ambiguity. And the second one.
Should there maybe be firmer rules or at least clearer guidelines about ministers accepting dinners funded by private individuals, especially, when tycoons or potentially high-risk people are involved?
Like drawing a clearer line.
Perhaps. It's a policy question that these events bring to the forefront.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. How do incidents like these, the reports, the questions, the official responses, or lack thereof, actually shape how you perceive the leaders and the integrity of the whole system?
Yeah, what are the long-term consequences when things like this happen in a society like Singapore, which really prides itself on trust and clean governance? It's definitely something worth mulling over.